Hello, hello, hello. My name is Deepak. I'm your host for Pixel Pushers. Thank you for joining us today. I have the privilege and pleasure to introduce one of my friends who's one of the premier Roblox creators out there. And we asked him, how do you handle feedback and criticism in the UGC ecosystem? But before we get to do that, I'd like to introduce my co host, Elliot.
Hey, how's it going? I'm Elliot, and yeah, I'm also super stoked to be here and to talk to Deepak's friend, and his name is Sigmund. He's the studio director for Geek Out Studios, and yeah, he's just an all-around seasoned veteran when it comes to UGC and managing the platforms like Roblox. And then he's also here to share his insights on user feedback and criticism and how to handle that. So, without further ado, da 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 da,
Hey, hey,
Sigmund.
hey. Glad to be here.
I'd love for you to do a little bit intro to our audience, like who you are, besides being Deepak's friend.
I'll be forever Deepak's friend, similar to how it's always my brother's brother, you know? There's certain labels you'll just never get rid of. No, my name is Sigmund. I live in Norway and I'm 30 years old. I've been in the UGC space for, I think, about 17 years or something like that. My journey actually started in Roblox back in 2007, and I'm still in the Roblox ecosystem today. Um, I found Roblox at a time in my childhood where I was playing a lot with Legos, so physical toys, but Legos in particular allowed me to really express my creativity and build, build beyond the recipe or the formula that they had provided us. Um, when my creativity got to a point where it really wanted to shift every day, multiple times a day, tell these stories, I quickly learned that the Lego sets I had, they were amazing when they came out of the package and I built them into their original shape. They were great when I reshaped them into something else, but I breaking it down and building it up again as something new kind of got rid of that spark I tried to keep with my creations. So around that time, I was actually kind of introduced to Roblox through a YouTube ad, I think, of someone was building this tower in Roblox and shooting it with a rocket launcher, so it exploded. And then they just regenerated it. And I was so mind blown. It was like, this is solving my issue 100%. And since then, I've kind of been all around Roblox doing all these different things, building my journey from being more on the player side to now, managing a studio of 25 people making games full time for Roblox.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That leads me to my question. Like, you've been around the block, right? You've made many games. You worked with me on many event games at Roblox. You're now helping to lead a studio. Like, how do you go about being a creator and handling all that feedback or criticism, or even, it could be awesome, like praise as well, right? It doesn't have to be just be like negative. Like, how do you go about processing that kind of information?
I wish I could tell you crystal clear this is the success story, but it's a never ending skill I feel I need to develop. But the really unique part about these UGC ecosystems that are sort of created by the creators themselves and not by big studios is that the path down to the community is very short. So the community might as well consist of the developers as it does of players, and you can't always really tell the difference. So for me, it's always been interesting to kind of participate in the community as my own persona rather than as a studio title or whatever. I've never felt truly like the dev team, although it's a nice little tag to have and a different name color and all of those things. And there was actually a time where I had a personally very popular game because I helped introduce the hide and seek genre to Roblox back in 2008. And a couple of years after that, it was one of the top games on the platform for some periods. and people would just follow me in game everywhere and talk to me about that game because they had no other like outlets to provide that feedback or that admiration or the hate or whatever comes with being a game developer. And a part of me just always loved that because it really showed me how little distant I was to that community. I think it's a little bit harder at scale if you have 100,000s of community members, but it's all about not distancing yourself. I think like feeling like you're part of the group and being open to that feedback, and then building good mechanisms for yourself to filter some signal to noise. Because if you're getting thousands and thousands of feedback requests, of course you need to sort of prioritize. I've never personally, been at a point receiving so much that I can't handle it or my team can't handle it. But I do foresee a lot of creators are having that issue.
How do you normally get your feedback nowadays?
It's often via Discord. Usually you set up Discord communities for your games in Roblox. There's a lot of also activity on TikTok. TikTok trends and Instagram trends are pretty big and they can come and go. But if you follow along, you'll actually be able to tap into a lot of useful feedback that people post in the comments on maybe a totally unrelated Roblox video. But you can catch up. But it's usually, defined Discord communities or X accounts. More and more people are integrating ways of giving feedback directly into the game. And Roblox has actually also created a official like feedback function or feature that lets us see this in the analytics dashboard with localization and everything, which is starting to prove quite useful.
And I bet you at some point it's not even like you're taking the direct comments, but you're kind of just like reading the room, right? Because if so many people have X negative comment or positive comment, well, that was a win or that was a loss, right?
Yeah, but I think a big learning I had of feedback is that players don't necessarily always know what they actually want. So they'll ask for something, but as a developer, you need to kind of learn to see beyond that. Like what's the core of their request? Because of course, an extreme example would be, oh, I want this car that's super cool. And it's like, yeah, that's super cool. But maybe the feedback you need to distill from this is that they want more like luxurious items, or they want more achievement-based items, or like something to show off. And if you can distill sort of the individual request of what they think they want from actual like good additions to the game that increases the scope, or not scope, but the depth of the content, for example, that's really that's sort of the skill I think developers need to create from early on. Because if you keep giving them what they want, they'll just keep pivoting. But if you understand what they want, that's where you find the gold.
It seems like though a balancing act. Like I'd love to know how, like, if you could dig a little deeper into that process, because I know, not saying this as a brag, like I know many creators who also don't take any feedback, and sometimes it works for them, sometimes it doesn't. Like, how do you go like distilling, like you were saying?
Great question. A little bit case by case basis, depending on how strong of a creative vision you have for what you're creating. I've been in so many projects where on the entire scale of like letting the community kind of control the direction, which can be a good way to foster that community and give the community feeling. But I also think it's important to understand when should you not let go of the creative vision, because you as a developer, you have maybe been through a lot of iterations, or not only of the game itself, but of the game design. You've made a lot of considerations that players will never know about. You have the analytics, you have the internal play tests, you have the QA tests, and then you have 100,000 feedback lines. So understanding sort of what part of your game design you need to guard versus what's like more applicable for the community to help figure out is important. And things like core design, core loops, I tend to be very wary of changing, because there's usually a lot of consideration going on. But we're trying to confirm it with stats. So if we see that the retention is high, engagement is high, session time is high, then we've done something right on the core loop, or at least on some loop. But we must assume it's maybe the core loop for most games. And then you add on to that with deeper content. And that's where I think there's much more food for the community to help consume, or help provide you with.
Has there ever been a time where positive feedback has gone in to improve your game or a game that you have worked on?
For sure. A lot of the feedback we receive, especially if it's like repeated feedback from different users and ideally different user segments, that's really good. And anything to do with UX or understanding of the game and communication of what's the concept here, all of those kind of feedback I at least tend to take very seriously. And then content ideas and so on are probably less impactful, because you can always spin content in this way or the other way. But like anything to do with onboarding people and keeping people in the game, those are kind of feedbacks we want to be receiving, and if you get positive feedback on that, that's actually kind of rare, because people will complain if the game is hard to play, but they will rarely call you out positively if it's easy to play. So if you do get positive feedback on those kind of things, that means you're doing a really good job.
Let me ask the opposite question from early Sigmund days, because I know you'll get a lot of feedback now, right, as being an established creator, whether positive or negative. But I know we have a lot of younger creators who watch the show. So like questions I often get from them is like, what do I do when I get no players, no feedback? How do you handle that mindset?
It's tough. Like even we get no players sometimes. It's not like just because you're becoming an industry veteran and a grandpa in the community that you're followed by thousands of players always. But I think a great test is always to check with your friends or in your existing network, asking them to play and observe how they play. Don't give them instructions. Like I find it so helpful to just observe my closer friends play, or to record their screens and to hear their frustration and whatever, to really gauge what's happening, because that's the fresh player perspective. And even if you only have 2 people playing your game and those are your friends, that's very valuable perspective. And if they don't like it, the chance is that the players you want to tap into also don't like it. So we're actually restructuring our studio right now to be more team-based and to test on a weekly basis, which for experienced developers sounds, this should be a standard anyway, right? But we've been experimenting with a like free flow culture where all the 25 people form teams as they like, and there's basically no process they have to follow, just to see what happens. It's been super many good learnings. And one of the things we realized is like how quickly the threshold to test your game internally often can build up. And if you don't verify your game loop yourself, then no one else is going to have fun. Like start with you, then go to the next level of your friends or your teammates, your family. Maybe you have a partner group of developers. Maybe you're part of a developer network on Discord or whatever. Just get it out there. Like they don't have to be the intended players necessarily in the beginning, but you have to sort of validate your concept against someone that isn't yourself.
It's a little off topic, but kind of along the same lines. Like if you were to tell somebody who's building a game when to release it, like when is it ready? So like you have an idea, you've built it out, you want to get people to play test it. Like, how many play test sessions should they do before they say, like, you know what, this is ready to push publicly?
Really, really hard to answer in one like line.
Oh, make it 3 lines. No, I'm kidding.
My general philosophy is like when the game feels fun enough, and that might take 2 tests. It might take 10. There's also a skill that I don't know how much for the other UGC ecosystems, but in Roblox, this idea of rapid prototyping, but also like just building your development muscle is really, really important, where you must learn to stop and cut your games. Like, not every concept is a winning concept. And the sooner you understand that, and that is not a failure, the better. Like, most people maybe have to develop 10 or 20 or 30 titles before they even get something that might remotely stick to the market. Some people are lucky and have it on their first or second. But the majority of devs, and me certainly too, like, I've been through hundreds of projects and I still don't have a top hit. Like, I've been part of many great projects and I've made a living and a career out of this, but it's not like I'm a top game today, even though I have 17 years of experience on Roblox, So it's all about just understanding or finding sort of a threshold for yourself of how much is too much. Like, is this even remotely fun at its core? And understanding that you can test a concept at its core actually very early in your process. You don't have to polish and make the game feel perfect to be able to test it. And that's actually with the restructure I just mentioned, we're actually time constraining how long a project can live without getting like thumb up for this is fun enough to continue from the rest of the studio. So we're going into very like harsh, not harsh, but like honest feedback cycle we want to make, because if our studio members don't feel like it's fun after 2 or 3 weeks, then why would players do it? Because we are part of the target audience, at least to some degree. There might still be markets out there, obviously, but I think the simple answer to your question is when it is fun enough. And how do you measure fun? Well, it's to observe who's playing. You can always validate a function if it works, if the gameplay mechanic actually slings the rock when you click the button, but like that doesn't constitute whether it's fun or not.
You just dropped so many good nuggets there, Sigmund. I like the idea of it can't be your baby. So you have to have a life cycle on your prototyping phase. Testing early is pivotal, and then testing for the right things.
100%. And this is art, so people grow attached to what they're working on. And some projects are working as passion projects for 3 or 4 years, and they might be a big hit when they release, but like they might also not, right? So detaching yourself a little bit, and again, don't see it as a failure, see it as a stepping stone, because your win might actually be 3 or 4 projects from now.
I have so many novels that I started off and just stopped because
you don't even want to see my Dropbox. It's like hundreds of gigabytes of just like, yeah, nope, not doing this.
All right. And now we are into the gameplay portion of our show. We're going to be playing Loot Mansion with Sigmund. And this is on Horizon Worlds. And of course, we're in here with Brown Lantern. And let's do it.
Yeah. So watch out for the toasters.
Toast. Things I never thought I would say out loud, like toasters.
The power of UGC, man. It's like, it's so much wacky stuff and it's so much fun. And you wouldn't ever get that unless the creation was like crowdsourced, I think.
I feel like we don't get to see a lot of that stuff in the public.
No, it's been one really interesting aspect of my career. Oh, snap. That's a big teddy bear not looking for a hug. A big aspect of my career actually has been like Roblox has been seen by both my like people in my age and so on as something younger people were doing. So before I really had like big games to show to and like bold career moves, and the platform had sort of gone out of that it's for kids stage. I feel like I had to really like justify all the time how great like the canvas was for creating just about anything, and that it is for all ages, you know. And one of the things I sort of realized was that it's pretty awesome to have a space, whether that be Roblox or Minecraft or Horizon, where you can be as silly as you want, and explore things you can't do in real life and stuff like that. And just once you learn to embrace that and understand that that's one of the powers of these UGC ecosystems, that's when you start unlocking the superpowers of development, I think.
It sort of goes back to your earlier point you made in our conversation, where it's made by creators who are players.
Yeah, 100%.
Not that you can't, but it's just there's an extra layer of knowledge the player gets because they know the humor, they know what's funny, they know what ticks. And it goes back to this idea in my head of like, it's a social identity.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this is how you see yourself, not as just a developer. You see yourself as in this case, like Roblox creator. Just like someone on Horizon or Rec Room or something else, VR chat. They are a citizen of that ecosystem.
Yeah, and the same with YouTube and Instagram and TikTok.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
These, for sure. Like it's not just the game format, but any kind of creativity or expression format. And I think I'm a strong believer of that the sort of bigger IPs of the future might as well come out of, two 16 years olds sitting over the weekend just creating stuff. And that blowing up by just reaching a whole new range of consumers through these easy to access platforms on all kind of different hardware specifications, from the worst pass me down phone, to the highest high-end VR goggles, and sort of getting the traction they need to really go big and be established. I think we'll just see more and more and more of this sort of crowdsourced IP that blows stuff up. And what I also find really interesting that some of these ecosystems are leaning more and more into is like the bridge back into the physical world, whether that be through hardware like Horizon, of it becoming, XR or AR, or things like digital fashion and real fashion having a crossover, real fashion being inspired by digital fashion, for example. So there's so many opportunities for people to involve themselves and find some level of success or exposure that you really couldn't have just 10 years ago.
No, I like that because I think some people think like the bad word, right, is the metaverse. And reality, right, it was never just about being in one virtual world, right? It was like you can be in a virtual world or you can be in a mixed world, which is like that physical virtual space, like the MR space. Right. And that's the thing, right? Like if you want to go like lose yourself in a world, you can, just like in a 2D game or a 3D game or a virtual reality game, right? But if you wanted to go and mix things of real life and mixed reality life, you can do that as well.
Yeah, it's unlocking so many interesting opportunities. And also so many like ways of different talent to come together. It's no longer just like whoever's good at 3D art or 2D art, or it's the whole range of disciplines, which is maybe what I really like about game development in particular, is like you have to master a lot or you have to find a team that does it.
But that is the thing I love about games. But I definitely see it in UGC as well, right? Is you can be successful as a solo dev,
yeah,
or as a small team. This bear is cracking me up. 2 more questions for you, Sigmund.
Let's go.
If old Sigmund could talk to young Sigmund, what feedback or advice would you give young Sigmund?
It's such a tricky question because I'm obviously super young still. Now, if I today could speak to the Sigmund that worked with you about 10 years ago, it is to be patient and enjoy where you're at. I have this thing where I'm kind of a perfectionist combined with a bit of people pleasing. So I try to kind of be in good favor with everyone, which is great on a team sometimes. But it has led me to take on things that had to be done, but that not necessarily I wanted to do as much. And while I've had a great time, that's a hard, epic skeleton right there. While I had a great time working on those event games, and I think I also helped you out a lot, and was felt almost like a SWAT team you called in sometimes, but like love being that. But I think I also kind of, when this became more and more of a career for me, it reached a point where I no longer like enjoyed games the same way. And I think it was because I felt I had to perform and kind of show that my long time in this ecosystem and industry, that I had to prove that I had become very, very good. And the more ambitious project I kind of took on, the higher the stakes I felt like I had to prove. And the thing is, like, yeah, those projects were awesome. We got to work with Disney and Warner Bros. For movie releases like Moana, Ready Player One, Jurassic World. Crazy things to do as an 18-year-old, you know. But it also built this weird threshold where I felt like I had to overdo that for every new project. Like I had to find a better, more ambitious partner than Disney, and like at some point it's just getting impossible, and it's all in your own head. So what I would tell to my own staff is like, just enjoy it. Like you're here because you wanted to express your creativity. That's where the journey started back in your childhood of, you know, playing with Legos and wanting to expand your canvas for creativity. And I'm starting to find back to that spark of creating games now, but that's 10, 15 years later. I wish I had that spark throughout that entire period.
No, but that's still a good word. Like understanding, like you can still have the joy. It doesn't have to be all business.
Mm-hmm.
The final question, Sigmund.
Shoot.
And this is what I ask every guest. What do you see as the future of UGC in 10 to 20 years?
I feel my my view on this changes every few weeks or months. I'd love to see the bridge back to the physical world take more shape. Just thinking, you know, from my childhood, we were still buying physical CDs for games, and there was a point of standing in line to get the collector's edition. Getting the collector's edition digitally just isn't the same thing anymore. And I think sort of getting a feeling back for treasuring something, and that there is a certain sense of not necessarily scarcity, but like there is an importance of your product, I think is really an interesting point. And the more I see what's happening in the fashion scene, just in Roblox, where I'm in a little bit, I'm not involved in the fashion scene, but I observe what's happening with real life fashion brands being inspired by digital designs, for example. That's the kind of stuff I think we'll see more and more, like almost democratizing creation, not just digitally.
So you really do love that like mixed reality where the worlds are colliding, digital and physical.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of really interesting opportunities to explore when you allow to explore it in different setups. So I don't think VR or MR or mobile or you know, I don't think any one platform is the answer to anything, but I think understanding what is effective on which platform and really leveraging that's going to be the future. So some things are going to be way more effective if it is in a mixed reality environment. And it's some of the learnings I've also had kind of working with some brands more on like games as a service or marketing is like, it's not just about being present online in these ecosystems. It's also about understanding what is really like, how do you connect to that community? And then back to the word of democratizing creation, it's like the lower the bar for entry into creation gets, the more crazy creations we'll see. You know, when we were doing some of the event games back at Roblox, we had to support down to iPhone 6 or something at that time, which wasn't a great device, but it was far better than still some devices on the market. Understanding that so much of the world maybe still is on hardware that isn't as high end, and understanding that that's a whole audience to tap into as well. Not just for entertainment, but like I really love the aspect of using games for education or using games for treatment in health clinics and stuff like that. There's so many ways to use this format of content that I still think is yet to be explored in different like mixed reality, virtual reality, mobile, and so on. So that's, I'd love for UGC and this kind of creation to go in that direction the next 20 years, more real world applications beyond just entertainment.
The thing I love about this question, I get a different answer every time. Everyone has a different perspective, which is amazing. Sigmund, friend, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's been a blast.
Thank you, everyone, for watching the show. Please like and subscribe wherever we put this button. And we'll see you next time. Take care. Bye.